How's the sound? So is the sound good for you guys? I gotta get the second camera working here. Okay. So right now I'm just trying to fix the camera so you can see a little. Might be too close for the close-up one, but I'll move it around in a second. So today we're gonna try and sort out some other things going on with the setup. Last, what was it, Monday? We figured out how to basically configure the X, Y, and Z, as well as set up the cooling fans. Today we're going to figure out the screen and Raspberry Pi. And we got a new Pi, so I'm going to be testing something out. It might not work out very well, but we'll see what happens. But the Raspberry Pi 02W just came out. It's about $15 US. And it has 4 cores in it now. So I'm wondering if it'll work with the printer. I'm not sure. So we're going to explore that as well. So I'll show you what we're going to do. So I'll take you over to the regular screen for a second. And first thing we want to do is hook up the display. And unfortunately I don't have the screws for the display that you saw on the counter, but I do have the actual cord for it someplace. And there's 2 different cords that we'll use for it. So let's first look it up real quick here. So it's the SKR2. And if we go inside here and go to hardware, we can check for the manual first. And inside the manual, hopefully it'll show us something. Probably not, but that's okay. So I'm going to scroll through it rather quickly. We're looking for, in this case, the TFT display, which is down in here. And we need to know what the pinouts are, so hopefully they'll show us in the actual manual. If not, we'll figure it out. So they're talking about the Raspberry Pi, and I don't see it. Awesome. So we're going to go back and we're going to look for the pinout diagram. And what we need to find is the reset button. So it's on the right hand side. So that's going to be the one that sticks out. So I'll show you what I mean as soon as I find a cable. Give me a second to peek around here. The funny thing is I normally have about 8 cables floating around. So let me reach up into here and see if I can grab one. There we go. So I'm going to grab it off another display. So here we go. So let me show you what I'm doing. So over here, the system currently is powered down, and we have a cable over here. And as you can see, it's got one side that sticks out right here that I'm flicking with my finger. That's the reset portion. And then the other portion is here. So you want to line it up like so, and then orient it to where the reset button is going to be. So I have to look down inside here to see it. And then I have to look over at the diagram over here. And as you can see, it's on the right hand side, pointing towards the back of the board. So if we go back over to here, we can locate it. It's located down in here, and the reset button's closest to me. So I'm going to align this, and then I'm going to stick it down inside there. You may have to do it in two different pieces. Right now I'm having a tough time because of the angle. So I'm going to pick up the second half and push it in for the reset. And that one's not in. Hang on a second. There we go. So that's the one side of the cable. The other side, we have to use this little connector that's right here. And we're going to do this on the back of the display. So on here, you're going to look for where it says UART. In this case, we have it right here. And we'll line up the notch connectors like so. And then we'll stick that right in there. Then we'll flip it over and power up the system to see if it works. Now there are ribbon cables that you can attach as well that give you other functionality for the board, but I just want to show you this part first. So let me power the system with the power cord. So I'm going to plug this in, so things might move around. Okay, let me power up the system. And as you can see, the display is coming on, but it says no printer attached. So I know it's tucked down underneath so you can't see it. So let's put it up here. And of course the light's reflecting. But let me see if I can turn down the light a little. Oh, maybe it's the other one. So we're going to have to solve that problem. So what I'm going to have to do is power down the system. Then I'm going to go over to the system over here, and I'll light this up in a second. I just have to make sure I'm not pulling the cord all over the place. And I'll illuminate this so you can see better. And we're going to pull out the USB drive, which is down in here. Of course, I dropped it. So we're going to stick this inside of our container right here. And I've forgotten what the actual number is going to be, but we'll figure it out. So we'll plug this into the computer. Then we'll go over to the desktop. And on the desktop, what we need to figure out now is the Marlin firmware. So I'll bring that up so you can see it. So over here, we're going to go to configuration.h. We're going to go to the very top again. And we're going to search on motherboard just to get us in the neighborhood. And right up above here, it's the second serial port. Now you can run a second speed on this. So I'm going to enable this. Now I know it's either 1 or 2 for the number. I'm not sure which, so we'll start with 1 and see if it works. And seeing how we already have 250 for the baud rate up here, we're just going to stick with that and not change it for an override. So we're going to have to build it again. So I'm going to do a clean and then a build just in case I did something in between. So I'll click the checkbox and I'll check on the chat while this is going on. No problem, you do. So for those that don't know, there's an active Discord that is managed by myself and somebody else that you can go to if you have questions. Now, obviously, I'm not available 24/7, but there's other people in there. I'll show you what it looks like real quick. Essentially, you can go into Discord right here, and in the general chat, there are a lot of people that can answer questions or show you how to do things that might be able to help you with an issue. So I just wanted to make you guys aware of that. Hey Glenn, how's it going? So now that that's built, I'm gonna actually pull the build by going to the .pio folder, the Big Tree Tech SKR folder. Then I'm gonna go to firmware.bin, right click, and I'm gonna go with Reveal in File Explorer. Now, obviously, we loaded something on Monday, so we're gonna actually copy this over by send to the boot drive. And after it loads, obviously, it's gonna be renamed to firmware.cur in all capital letters. So, now that we've got that done, I'm gonna pop out the drive and go back over to the desktop. And then you're gonna watch me futz around for a second while I try and get this to work. So I'm gonna take out the drive and I'm gonna find my needle nose someplace. There we go. So essentially, because this container I designed has the SD drive right here, I'm gonna use these pliers to get it in easily. Or at least that's what I'm gonna tell you. So I'm gonna align it and slide it in. There we go. And push it in with my finger the rest of the way if it needs it. And we're gonna see if the actual monitor or display for the TFT works correctly. So it might not work correctly on the first couple tries. This is gonna be an iterative process, but hopefully it'll work the first time out. Let me turn out this light. So it looks like it worked. Now, if you still have issues with your display for touchscreen, what you can do, obviously it's not showing very well unless I turn out the light above me, but there's a button down here for menu. Then you're gonna go to settings. Then you're gonna find your baud rate, which is UART speed now. And it's set to 250 or 250,000 bits per second. Normally they defaulted to 115/200, which is up here. Let me see if I can bring this so you can see it. Whoops, it looks like I unplugged it. Whoop, the reset button popped out, but hopefully this will still come on. So menu. Hang on, I gotta fix the menu button here. So when I pulled this, I pulled out the reset down below and apparently the cord. So let me straighten this out. Normally it's not going to move around like I'm doing it. It's going to be bolted down. But at least you get to see me insert it a second time, I guess. There we go. And hopefully I won't pull out the cord this time. So let me see if I can focus a little. There we go. Menu. Then you're going to go to settings. Then you're going to go to UART speed, and I just changed it by accident. So let me try and tap where it needs to be. In this case, it's 250 or 250,000 or million bits per second. Normally they defaulted to 115/200. So let me leave this menu. And that's the other thing that can cause it not to function correctly or look disconnected. So now that we got that working, we could actually test the movement. So let me get this cable in a safe place. And essentially I'm going to go to menu, then I'm going to go to movement, and I'm going to move the x-axis. And right now it's set to 1 millimeter movement, so it doesn't look like much. So let's see if I can move it up to 10. There we go. So it's working there, the y-axis is working, and I'm guessing the z, so that little humming noise you're hearing is I have the wrong fan attached. So let me fix that real quick. So I'm going to go over to my desktop and I'm just going to disable the motors in Pronterface. So I got to connect to it. So give me 2 seconds to get there and set it up. So connect, motors off. In a couple of seconds that'll shut down. Obviously the reason that's happening is I think I have a 12 volt fan on a 24 volt power supply. So now that we got that working, we've been able to test the X, Y, and Z. Unfortunately I want to show you how to calibrate, but I want to do it with filament. So I'm going to avoid talking about that today. So I'm going to show you how to set up the Raspberry Pi Zero as soon as this motor shuts off. So what I'm going to do is show you this. Let me bring some light back in here. And I'm going to power this down for a second. So we have a Raspberry Pi 02W that just came in the mail. And essentially this is a new processor on this. So it's now 4 cores that you have on this. That means essentially 4 processors instead of 1. So this might be able to handle driving the actual printer for you, but I don't know for sure, so we're going to experiment. So what I need to do is actually load firmware on this. So I'm going to obviously need this again, and I'm also going to have to go to the Raspberry Pi site, and I want to see if we can do 64-bit because it can handle that. So I've got a 16 gigabit drive, which is probably too small. You either want to go with 32 or 64 for it. And I'm going to plug this in. This might be a bad drive that I have. We'll find out in a second. So let me go over to the desktop. And I'll check on the chat. See what's going on there, just in case I missed something. Okay, it's somewhat quiet at the moment. So what we're going to do is we're going to go over to the website for Raspberry Pi, or excuse me, Octopi. I'll wake up in a minute. Or Octoprint. We're going to go to downloads. Now this one is a 16-bit version, or excuse me, 32-bit version. We want to go for the 64, so we need to find the GitHub. So Nightly's and then 64-bit Nightly's here. Now it's a different operating system or OS than the Raspbian. It's actually Ubuntu, I believe, unless they changed it again. And you're going to find the most current build down at the bottom. So obviously they do a lot of nightly builds. And we're going to click on this one right here from, it looks like today, or yeah, today. So we'll click on the zip and it will begin to download for us. Now this install should be easy. There will be parts where I trip and fall. There are parts I don't want to show you for when I set my password for my router. So that part I'll filter out. So as soon as this is downloaded, which should only take a couple of minutes, we'll be able to do 64-bit for the install. So what you're going to need for this is called Raspberry Imager. And you can find that on the Raspberry Pi website. So I'll bring it up so you can see it. Unfortunately, it has this weird thing when I open it. So essentially, you're going to choose your OS. It's going to be custom. But at the present, we can't map to it because it's not there yet. So we're going to wait on that. And then we'll do choose storage, which will be the drive, which we might have an issue with as well. So let me check on the drive real quick to see if I can see it. So if we go over to here and I click on this, it's not working, so I know that drive's bad. So I'm going to pop that out and I'm going to grab a different one. I just got to find one real quick. Apparently I've got a box full of Raspberry Pis here, so let's see if I can find one real quick in here. Oh, I know where there's one. I have one on my table. This drive might be slightly bigger. Fortunately, I need my whatchamacallit to get it out. There we go. So this one's going to be 16 gigabits as well. So let me pop that in there and put it back in the computer for you. So that boot drive, let's check on it real quick. It works. So let's close out of here. Check on the download real quick. So it looks like I got 3 minutes. One of these days I'm going to get fiber optic to the house or the apartment, but currently it's not available. So when that does become available, these lags will go away completely. So let's see, let's check on the chat while I'm waiting here, because this might be 3 or 4 minutes. Does anybody have any questions while we're waiting for the download to finish? Okay, well, I think part of the reason it's taking forever to download is because I'm actually streaming. The green connector is broken off. Is it possible to solder back on, or will they replace it for you? Because Amazon's really good about replacing stuff if it's broken. I've actually had issues with Amazon where they've delivered the wrong board and fixed it in a day or two. But unfortunately, they didn't know the difference between SKR 1.1 and 1.2. So something tells me I should have downloaded before this, but we got a minute left here. So it slid out. Yeah, on this board, the green connectors on top actually lift out. So let me see if I can show you an example of one. I gotta find a board real quick here. Sorry, I got so many boards to sort through. I gotta create a new filing cabinet. Okay, let me bring this up so you can see. So on this board, this is not the same board, but it's the same concept. These lift out. That way you can actually put your connector in, and then you can push them back down, then power it. It's a safety feature. So they actually come out. That might be what you're talking about, unless they were not soldered into the board. So let's go over to the desktop. The download's just finished. And all we're gonna have to do to set this up is it's currently zipped, so you're gonna have to extract it. So you're gonna go to extract all, and then you're gonna extract it. And this is gonna take a few moments as well. Might take a minute or two. Obviously you can watch the progress if you're into that kind of thing. But let me check on the chat because I just had to look away for a second. So the bottom part is bent, still soldered. I know something's wrong when I opened in the plastic bag. It was shredded from the bottom. Yeah, that could be broken then. Okay, so it looks like it's fully extracted. So what we're gonna do now is go over to Raspberry Imager, and we're gonna go choose OS, use custom. It's gonna point to your downloads folder. So here's the Raspberry Pi 64, here's the image file. So you'll open that up, and hopefully it'll populate when you click open. Then you'll go to choose storage. We're gonna choose the 16 gigabit drive, right, and then yes for overwrite. Now later on you can actually upgrade this in theory for clipper or different types of ways to drive your printer. I'm not sure that the Raspberry Pi, or excuse me, the Raspberry Pi Zero version 2 will work. But normally you would use a Raspberry Pi 4 or 3 to drive your printer. They're about $35 in US. I don't know what they are in other countries. But it takes the load off your computer, so it makes life a lot easier. So as soon as this downloads, what we're going to do is go back over to the desktop, and we're going to load the actual, well, first I have to modify it so we can set the, the supplicant file. And I'll show you what the supplicant looks like. I'll modify it off camera, and then we'll go from there. I just don't want to see what passwords I put in. Granted, it's not like you can see my router anyways, but I would rather make it harder. So we're at about 60%. Might be able to take a question while that's rolling along. Okay, well, we'll watch this go through for a second. And then what I'm going to have to do is pop out the drive for the USB, sit with the SD in it, then place it back in because the computer won't see it after it's written to it. And then it'll be visible to us. So we got about 19% more to go here. And it's actually going faster than I thought considering the situation. So as soon as this finishes, I'll pop it out for a second. Now it's probably going to do a verify right after this, so this might take a second more now that I think about it. So yeah. But this is something you'll do with the Raspberry Pi 3 or 4 where it'll run more efficient, but I just want to see what happens before I make a tutorial on this, and it's either a total fail or a total pass, but we'll see. I just want to see first if it'll actually connect to the printer and move it. And then I want to see if I can actually hook a camera to it and watch the actual printer. So the camera will be the USB that we have sitting here. So it's almost halfway verified. I'm going to move some stuff around to make space. I think I have all the cords. I got to plug in the power real quick here. If it'll fit. Okay, I'll take... Hopefully the camera's working and I didn't just unplug it, because I think I just did. Give me a second. Oop! I caused an error, but let's see if you guys can still see. Okay, the camera's still on, I hope. No, give me a second with the camera. So essentially we're all set, I think, because it was just doing a verify and I may have caused issues with that. But let's see. Let's see. Silly question. I will be using 4 TMC 2209s in my future SKR version 2. Do I need to leave the 5th connector open with the same jumper config as the other 4? That would be no, but I mean, I like to leave the jumpers in if I'm not using them, just so I know they're there. But you will, if you're doing sensorless homing, have to put those 2mm jumpers on. But give me a second to try and fix the camera here real quick. This might take a second. When I disconnected the power, I was trying to make space for the other power unit. And now the camera's working again, so I'll show you what I'm doing. So we're gonna have to power this Raspberry Pi in a minute. So I was trying to find real estate to plug this in. So I might have to move some stuff around. So if all of a sudden power goes out on something, that's because I'm moving something. And the power went out on one of the cameras. Hopefully you can still see. And now we have power for this. Sorry about that. So let's go over and see what's going on here. So I need to go back over to the desktop for a second. What I need to do is actually, hopefully the sound's working. Someone can let me know if it's not. Okay, I think the sound is working. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna minimize this. I'm gonna go over to the drive. Obviously I can't see it, so I gotta disconnect the USB drive for a sec, plug it back in. Now I'll be able to see it, or at least I think I will, unless I screwed up, which it looks like I did. So we're gonna have an issue with this drive. So let me take this out, plug it back in. I also caused some issues with the camera that I gotta fix. Yeah, I hosed that drive during verification. Awesome. So let me get a different drive. I'm quickly running out of drives today. I think I have one around here someplace. Nope. Give me a second to grab one out of the other room. Looks like they're all too small. Let me sort through my little pile and see if I've got some. Yeah, of course you have issues during live stream, but I decided to move a power cord, and the power cord was for the hub. And that didn't turn out to be the wisest decision. So I have another drive. Let me plug it into the USB, and I guess you're going to see the imaging a second time here. Okay, so this drive is already preloaded. So I'm not going to show you the supplicant because I know what's, well, actually I don't know what's on it, but essentially you're going to go to this file right here and open it up. But I'm going to image it real quick because there's a password on there I'm trying to hide from you. So yes, and this time I won't pull out the power midway through. So while that's going on, we're going to figure out something else to do. And one of those things we can do is actually calibration. I'll show you how to do the Z-axis real quick. So essentially, if you want to calibrate your Z-axis on your actual printer, I'm going to make one of the cameras that's horrible larger. Hopefully it looks good. Just give me a second to set it. Two seconds here. Okay, so this is going to be the webcam. I'm going to turn it up so you can see. Let me make it actually work correctly. There we go. So over here is the Z-axis. So essentially what we want to do, let me see if I can zoom it out so you can see, is we want to move the Z-axis, and I put little lines on the left-hand side that are gold that we can use to calibrate. You can see the same thing happening on the actual axis. So I'm going to move this closer so you can see better. So I'm going to power up the machine while this is working away. Hopefully we'll be able to connect to it. Then I'm going to connect to it via printerface, hopefully. And I'm going to move it up to one of those lines. So I'm moving it millimeter by millimeter at the moment because I'm trying to match it to a line. And then I'm going to move it by 10. So I'll show you what I'm doing. So let's move this by 10 and see what happens. So it looks like it's already within cal, but what you can do, if it's not, is measure from the beginning point and the end point, and then take that over. Normally you're going to move, I believe, 20 millimeters, and then you're going to multiply it by 5. So let me show you with a calculator real quick here. So in a calculator, you're going to say if you're moving 20 millimeters and you multiply by 5, that'll give you 100. Normally what happens though is you get a value of like 19.5 when you're measuring with calipers. You'll multiply by 5, then you'll go over to VS Code, and inside VS Code you'll go to your configuration.h and search on A4988. This will get you in the neighborhood. But down here you have your X, your Y, and your Z. In this case, Z is 400. So generally, the rule of thumb, I think, is the actual divides into the expected. And in this case, the expected would be 80. So in this case, if you divide into 400 with that value, so if we go over here and we say, we'll save this in memory. Let me see if it works. Okay, that's not too good, so let's try that again. So let me see, I'll have to write this down. So 19.5 times 5 gives you 97.5. So let's remember that. Now it's 400 divided by 97.5. That gives you 4.10. You're going to multiply this by 100. And that's your new value. Now you can go like 2 decimal places if you want and use those. But then you would replace that down in here for this value right here would be your new value. Then you would run another test. Usually I do this with a calibration cube, but the concept is the same for all of these. So with the extruder you would do the same thing. You would actually, if you can, extrude without the print head or heat and then measure the distance. Usually I do 100 on that for millimeters, and then I divide into that value and do the same calculation. So that's how you actually calibrate. Hopefully now we're done almost with this. Well, we're still writing. So that's how you're going to deal with that for all these values. So it's X, Y, Z. Now IJK probably does the same thing, but I'm not going to get into these because this functionality right in here does not work yet unless you know a lot. But then you have your E, and then you have all the other values that go with it right here. So normally I try and use the same steppers and motors so that we only have to work with one value. But you can break them out one at a time into other ones, and they give you the notation for that. It's painful, but it's easier to do as just one. So let me check on the chat while I'm waiting for this imaging to complete. Yeah, it can get a little interesting when I start pulling plugs. So let's see if the timing of this actual verification is almost there. It looks like it's 30%, so let's take a quick look. Yeah, it's about 42%. This time I won't turn off the power midway through. So as soon as this is done, we're going to actually plug this in to the Raspberry Pi and then power the Pi. But first I got to change the supplicant file, so that means I got to disconnect and reconnect it again. And obviously I gotta wait another couple of seconds. Okay, so now this will work. So what I'm gonna do is this. I'm going to disconnect the USB drive for a second with the TFT drive in it or SD card. Reconnect it. Bring this over so you can see, and now we have this. So we're going to look for the Octopi supplicant. We're not going to open this up in Notepad like I just did because that's wrong. But you're going to modify this if you're using Wi-Fi. So you'll remove the comments like so. And this will enable you to use Wi-Fi on this, making your printer wireless. So let me close out of here for a second and do the mods real quick. So I need to open this up in Notepad++. And then I have to check this real quick, so I'm going to drag it over here. And I'm going to scan through the file and make sure that I open the right thing. Okay. So you're not going to see this part. I'm going to do it real quick. Essentially, it's going to ask you for your SSID, and your SSID is going to be the name of your router, which I got to look up on another screen because I forgot what it is. So I'm going to go to my downloads folder, and I'm going to open something else up and pull the actual settings in. There we go. I'm going to save that real quick, and then you won't have to worry about me working off on another screen. Okay, so that's now updated for this file right here. So I'm going to disconnect this from the computer. I'm also going to turn on the camera that's going to blink out on me because I have to fix the timing on it. So hopefully you can see long enough for me to do this. So let me turn on the other camera, or make it so you can see it. There we go. Now this might blink out because it's defaulted to 30 seconds or something. So I'm going to pull this. I'm going to pull the drive out. I'm then going to insert the drive right here. Sorry about that. So I inserted the drive right here, and then I'm going to power it. And power, I believe, is right here. And I have a power supply that obviously caused some fun issues a second ago. So I'm going to translate back over to the screen in a second, just so, or transfer over to the screen so you don't have to keep it. See, it keeps blinking out as I learn to speak here. So I'm going to plug it in, and we're going to watch. It's now powered up. I'll show you in a second. I'm just trying to put it someplace where it's not going to move around. So I'm going to put it on the actual desk, and I'll show you what's going on. So let me focus this a little. So it's powering up right now. It's going to take a second to power. What we'll do next is actually go over to the desktop and try and connect to it. And I'll show you my trick to doing this. Go to command line. This is a little trick that'll show you more about computers than you actually want to know. You'll type ARP, A-R-P, space A, or minus A, pardon me. And then you press enter. And right now, this shows you everything that's showing up on the network at the moment. So the 1.1 is the router, and then my computer is 1.3. So we might not see the actual device right away, but we might see it in a second. It's going to take a moment to load. If it doesn't show up, you can go to your Wi-Fi router and log into 192.168.1.1 is probably what yours is going to be. And you can actually see what devices are connected. In my case, I don't feel like doing that because I know there's another way to do this. So I'm going to try the ping method, where I go ping 192.168.1. I'm going to do 5 to start. And if it replies, then I know that's the device. So it's not replying from this one yet. So I'm going to do a Control C, and I'm going to change the number to 6. Try again. And that obviously is even worse. So we'll go down to 4. So I might have to go to my router. Unfortunately, I can't show you that part, but essentially you put the number in your browser and then try that. So apparently it's not seeing anything. That's awesome. So let me go to the router and double check this. It's probably 1.7 and I missed it, or it's coming up later. So let's try an ARP real quick. There's a new issue with Windows where they don't allow you to see everything on the network. So I think it's actually 1.2. So let's give that a try and see if we can map to it. So if I bring up the browser and I do 192.168.1.2 and press enter, whoop, that's not going to get us there. It, in theory, will bring up what we're looking for. Apparently it's not, though. 192.168.1.1. So give me a second to check on my router. So essentially what I'm doing is I'm logging into my router and I'm going to connected devices and I'm typing in some kind of password and I'm going to check to see if it's working. So this will show me what devices have tried to connect. So it's 1.5. So let's do this. 192.168.1.5. Press enter. Whoop, not in the search, but in this. For some reason it wants to do a search. Oh, is there an extra dot in there? No. So hopefully this will want to connect. Otherwise I've got other issues. And apparently it doesn't. So we're going to have some good times here. So essentially I'm having an issue with it being able to be seen on the network. So I'm going to try another ARP. We'll try pinging 192. .5, and there might be something funky set up with the actual version that I'm working with, or I screwed something up. So I'm going to power down the Raspberry Pi for a second, pop out the drive, pop it into the computer and verify things. I know this seems very boring, but unfortunately a lot of things are iterative. So essentially I got to bring up the actual drive again. I'm going to have to go into the boot system. I'm going to have to go to the supplicant and change it again. So I'm going to see if I can open this up off screen and verify that I'm set right. It looks like I am. So I don't know why it doesn't want to load, other than there might be something wrong with the build that I actually grabbed. So let's try one last time to boot. So let me bring this up. I'm going to pop this back in. I'm going to power this back up. Hopefully I'm powering it correctly. It does say power in. Then I'll go back over to the computer. Sorry, I didn't transition for you to see it. But essentially I was putting in the drive. Go back over to the computer because the camera's working great. We give it a couple of moments. We're not getting a response there. On the browser, we're hoping it's going to be this, but let me check the other browser. Apparently connected devices is not as visible as I would like. And unfortunately I can't blur out the screen so you can't see what I'm doing. But it also might be that I started a different machine the other day for Octoprint. So I'm going to try a different IP address. I'm going to try 4. So this might not be working as well as I thought. Let's try pinging ourselves real quick here. So 192.168.1.3. So that's our computer. It's ARP to see what's on the network. So it's seeing a .2. That could be my cell phone, or it could be something else. So let's try logging into that one. That's awesome. So normally I would SSH into it, but we're gonna have to do it through a display. Let me just double check to make sure nothing's changed on the other monitor. So it says it's .5, but that might be my other octopus. Okay, I think I've just shown you a really bad example of how to set something up. Or my Raspberry Pi doesn't work and I don't know it. So we can test it out. This is gonna get kind of weird. I'm going to hook up a separate display. I might have to grab a different keyboard to try and fix this on the fly. But let me show you what I'm about to do. As soon as I find the actual cord for it, let me check on the chat while I'm doing that. So there's a couple of ways to work around this problem. One of which is to use a special cord to connect to it. And I'm trying to find the cord that allows me to do a connection with the display. And obviously my desk is super organized, so it's not on my desk. I might have left it hanging in the air like I normally do. Let's see. That's not it. That's not it. So it's probably buried in a box. So if you want to ask questions while I'm sorting through a box in a mad dash here, go right ahead and I'll take a look in a second. It's going to take me a second to find the right cord if I've got it in here. And if I'm using the right power supply. Let's see, this might be it. No, I need the other end of that. So I know I stored that someplace. So right now I have a secondary KKF display thing that I can pipe your viewing into, which I'm looking for, which I think is sitting behind the printer someplace. So I might not be able to do that. Oh, there it is. So now I just need the cord that goes into it. That might be behind me. Yes, it is. That's good. So I'll show you what I'm about to do in just a second. I'm just going to hook up another display adapter. I'm going to plug in the input port, and then I'm going to plug it into the Raspberry Pi, and I'll let you see what I'm doing here. So essentially I'm going to plug into here if I get it the right direction, and then I'm going to see if I can pipe the video, and then we're going to have to hook up an actual keyboard or something to break that out. So let me transfer you back over here. Now I'm going to work on the display real quick. So let's see. Raspberry Pi. I'm going to have to add something new here so you can see it. And then it's probably a video capture. We'll call it 3. And it might get confusing now. Okay, there's nothing showing up. Awesome. Well, they sure do make it easy. Okay, I guess we're gonna go with the next method. You're gonna like this. I'm gonna grab a display and plug it in. But problem is I don't have a lot of plugs. So I'm about to unplug a light for a second. Reorganize this real quick and power it this way. And of course there's no signal. So let me power cycle this. And I'm getting the weird feeling that the Raspberry Pi is not working as planned. Meaning that the Raspberry Pi is not working. Right now I'm just changing modes on the display, trying to get to an HDMI. Yep, I got HDMI. So I'll show you on the camera in a second. So essentially, I had to bring out a display to actually boot So it's going to take a second, and I'll see if it actually displays something of value. Right now, it's just saying that it's attached, meaning it's giving me color, but it's not giving me anything else. So there might be something wrong with the image that I'm working with, in which case I'd have to go back and do it again. And I know there's valid images out there. Hang on. So this part's not going too well. I may have to end the stream in a minute just because you guys are watching me struggle too much here. And it might even be, well, in retrospect, it's going to be humorous. But for those that don't know, I do have a Discord where you can ask questions. If I'm not there, there's usually someone else that can help you out. So I'll show you that real quick. Apparently I'm having trouble with all sorts of devices tonight. So this is the Discord. The link is in the actual stream description. And if you join here, you'll be able to talk to a lot of people that are knowledgeable about what they're doing. And once in a while, I pop in and actually have a conversation as well, as some people can attest to. So for the moment, I guess I'm going to have to end the stream because it's becoming humorous to me. And we'll pick this up hopefully tomorrow night when I get organized with the Pi 0 version 2 with Octoprint. But apparently it's not working very well for me today. And I don't want you to watch me struggle for another hour trying to figure it out. But essentially, this is a Pi I just received in the mail and haven't even tested it yet. And you're seeing the fun from that. But essentially, the Pi should boot normally. And I don't know if it's the 64-bit operating system I threw on it, which it should be able to handle. But apparently I'm having a lot of issues. So I'll pick this up tomorrow afternoon, probably around 6 o'clock-ish. And we'll see if we can get it resolved. But for those that have been doing Super Chats and PayPal, thank you very much. It's greatly appreciated. It helps me offset the cost of making these when they work well. But unfortunately, when you do stuff live, you get situations like this, and apparently I've got one of them. So I'll pick up with this hopefully tomorrow when the other Pi arrives. But for now, I think I need to end it just because it's too funny. So everyone take care, be safe, and I'll catch up with you tomorrow.